So what really happens if you speed the flow up on a cylinder, and it doesn't have to actually be very fast for this to start to happen, is that the flow will separate. What's called flow separation will occur. The flow will separate from the object. So as the flow comes in from the left here, the uniform spacing of these lines is supposed to indicate, uniform velocity coming in. And one streamline goes right to the stagnation point right there. Stagnation point, that's normal. That's what we had before. But now we see that these streamlines that come off the backside, they don't come all the way back around. The flow does not stay kind of attached to the body and follow it all the way to the back surface. The flow really just kind of heads on off here. And so the flow just heads off without ever going near the back. And then this fluid in the back is separated from this flow because you can see these streamlines. Remember, this flow does not cross streamlines. And so this region of fluid in here, no flow is entering or leaving this region. It's a completely closed section, so no flow is leaving out the back. The flow is just circulating around within this pocket. So this is the separation zone. And it's a zone of recirculating fluid. So we have recirculating fluid here. It's just spinning back here as the flow goes on by it. And again, I emphasize that, there's no fluid crossing this boundary. So this fluid isn't really participating in the outward flow out the back at all. It's kind of trapped right in there in that back region. Now, of course, this is going to be turbulent. Most likely, we know that the Reynolds number greater than 200, we're actually going to get a turbulent wake. And when that occurs, this whole back region will be transient, and so you'll have a totally, this you can't really represent that with streamlines because it's going to be, time dependent and three-dimensional. But what's gonna happen here is there still will be a recirculation zone, and it will mix a little bit with the rest of the fluid because there will be turbulent mixing back here. But it's still going to have this region that's really different than the rest of the flow in behind that body. And so that happens with a variety of different flows, not obviously just with cylinders. Any kind of blunt object can cause that. So I'm going to try to draw another one of these for you. We'll take a look at flow over a step, and that's actually going to have a lot of separation zones. So we're going to have flow coming in again, streamline coming in, and it's going to go up and over, like we think it will, like it has to, can't go through a solid object. And it's going to come back down. But you can see it's going to come back down much more slowly as drawn than it went up. So we're going to have something that looks a little like this. Put another couple lines here. So that's my stream. Those are my streamlines. And we're going to have three different zones of separation. So there's going to be a separation zone here. The fluid isn't really going to get fully into that corner. There's going to be a separation zone there. There's going to be another separation zone just at the top of this. Where the fluid, again, this is Reynolds numbers greater than really low Reynolds numbers. If you flow this flow really, really, really slowly, it will creep over and kind of do more what you think it's going to do. But it's, with no separation zones. But that's not going to be the case, so almost at any reasonable flow speed, you're going to see this flow do something much more like this. So you're going to have a separation zone here as well. So all of these are going to be essentially separation zones. You could try to draw even some streamlines in there because this one's really just going to be a swirling flow in here, a swirling flow in here, some kind of recirculation zone in here as well. So you've got three different separation zones, one here, one here, and one here, one here, one here, and one here. And so we'll label all of those. And there's also then, we have what's called a separation point and an attachment point. So those are all the three separation zones. And then each of these points is the separation point, right? So you're going to have the separation point. So we have three of those as well. Separation point there, separation point there, and a separation point here. So three separation points, one for each of the zones. And then we have what's called the reattachment point. So we have a reattachment point there. We have a reattachment point here. And the third reattachment point there. I'll just point it back at this one. So you've got three separation points, three reattachment points, three separation zones where the flow is recirculating. Remembering again that fluid really can't cross a streamline. What this picture is telling you is fluid from this in this region here does not get out into the flow. It's trapped by the wall here, and then the streamline here says that if it, it won't cross that either. This is the same thing. It's got a wall below it. It's got a streamline that's closed above it with no exit. So it's just going to spin in there. Same thing here. Got two walls here, here and here, and then you've got this streamline which says that it's just going to spin in this region. So we're going to have three different enclosed areas where the flow really doesn't mix with the rest of the flow. Finally, we'll take a quick look at airfoils, and then we'll get more into them in a second. But in terms of separation and stagnation points, so we draw the airfoil, we have the stagnation point right there. We're going to have the streamline coming under, which is pretty much undisturbed because the flat bottom of the airfoil doesn't change the velocity very much. But then this is going to be a longer path, so it's going to change a little bit more, a little bit of tightening of the streamline there, and then coming out that way, and we'll put another thing there. So that might be the streamlines around an airfoil, where this is the stagnation point. And so that looks nice, a nice streamlined body. But what you want to do in order to have lift, if you wanted to increase the lift on this wing, you would tilt that wing. So we're going to tilt that wing more upward so that we get increased lift. And we'll see that that does increase the lift, and we'll talk a little more about lift in a minute. So we get an increased lift there. And if you increase the angle, the first thing, if you know, that drawing is too extreme. We'll come back to that drawing. Let's start with just a slight increase in the angle. So with a slight increase in the angle, you get kind of the same behavior that we had before. So you get, the flow maybe coming down here a little bit. And hopefully, if things are going great, you have streamlines that look like this. So you don't have a separation zone. You just have a tilted wing with more upward of an angle there, and then the streamlines going around it with no separation zone. Notice there's no closed area here indicating a recirculating zone. So that's not what's happening. But if we tilt the wing more to a more extreme angle, that will occur. So if you have a more extreme angle, the flow comes in here, maybe it does this, maybe there's a stagnation point, say there, or even higher. But anyway, we'll do that one and then come up here. And then on the back side, you can see there's, kind of even visually, you can see there's no way the flow is really going to reconnect back here with this streamline following that way. So you're going to end up with some kind of a separation zone here. It's going to look something like this maybe. And so that's going to be your separation zone on the back side of the wing. And so we need to we need to be aware of that because it really changes what happens. So when that separation zone occurs, it really increases the drag a lot. So when you get flow separation increases drag a lot. And so when you're talking about a wing, that can be bad. So when you're flying along, you really don't want that to happen. When that happens, that's called a stall. And so you don't want that stall to occur. And so you want to have an object that doesn't have flow separation. So a well-designed airfoil will try to prevent that flow separation from occurring. And that will reduce the drag. Sometimes they want the drag, and during landing they sometimes increase the angle to create a separation zone to increase the drag and slow the plane down. But it's not good when you're just trying to fly along. And in addition, it's also inefficient if you have a turbine blade or something. You don't want that extra drag. So most of the time with airfoils, we're trying to prevent that separation from occurring so that we don't get recirculation zones back here. We don't get that increase in drag. And when you talk about streamlining an object, which of course is a word that you've used in English, so streamlining is an effort to prevent flow separation. So we'll see that can be very, very effective at reducing drag. If you have an object and you streamline it such that it doesn't have flow separation, that can significantly reduce the amount of drag on the object.